global tensions have reached a critical point following recent military developments. When Ukraine conducted a significant strike reaching far into Russian territory, Moscow's response was immediate and pointed directly at Washington. What makes this moment particularly significant isn't just the military action itself, but the diplomatic chain reaction it has triggered between two nuclear powers. What's actually happened? Ukraine recently executed a long-range military operation that penetrated deeper into Russian territory than previous attacks. Using advanced weaponry, likely precision drones or guided missiles, Ukrainian forces targeted a facility Moscow considers strategically vital. This wasn't a border skirmish or a tactical strike on supply lines. The attack demonstrated Ukraine's growing capability to reach targets Russia previously considered beyond Ukrainian range. This operational success represents a significant tactical evolution. For months, Ukrainian forces have gradually extended their striking distance, but this particular operation crossed into territory Moscow had publicly warned must remain off-limits. The psychological impact cannot be understated. Russia's defensive perimeter has been breached in a way that challenges their narrative of control. Moscow's interpretation. Russian officials responded within hours, but their accusation wasn't aimed primarily at Kyiv. Instead, Moscow directed its criticism squarely at the United States. According to Russian statements, this strike would have been impossible without American weapons systems, satellite intelligence, and tactical guidance. By emphasizing U.S. involvement, Russia is reframing the conflict from a regional war into something far more concerning. The language Moscow chose is particularly revealing. Officials use the term red line deliberately. In Russian diplomatic vocabulary, this signals that a boundary with serious consequences has been violated. They followed with warnings about retaliatory military technical measures, a purposefully vague phrase designed to create uncertainty. The ambiguity is strategic. It could mean anything from weapons deployments to cyber operations to nuclear posture adjustments. Washington's response behind the scenes. The U.S. reaction has been careful but intense. Intelligence agencies immediately began enhanced monitoring for any indicators that Russia might be preparing a response. Analysts are tracking unusual military movements, communication pattern changes, and any signs of strategic repositioning. Pentagon planners are considering multiple scenarios. Cyber attacks remain a primary concern. Russia has sophisticated capabilities to disrupt critical infrastructure without conventional military action. Economic and diplomatic pressure represent another possibility, potentially involving energy leverage or alliance manipulation. Military options exist too, ranging from sudden exercises designed to intimidate to actual weapons repositioning that changes the strategic balance. The fundamental concern for Washington is straightforward. American-supplied weapons are now striking inside Russia itself. This crosses a threshold that Moscow finds intolerable, raising the risk that future Ukrainian operations will be interpreted as U.S.-directed attacks rather than independent actions by a sovereign nation defending itself. Possible paths forward. Several scenarios could unfold from this point. Diplomatic deterioration. Russia might implement severe diplomatic measures, recalling ambassadors, expelling American officials, or pushing for international coalitions against U.S. policy. This would create a frozen diplomatic environment reminiscent of Cold War tensions, making communication and de-escalation increasingly difficult. Proxy war intensification. Both sides could double down on their existing strategies. Ukraine might receive even more advanced weapons systems while Russia escalates attacks on Ukrainian infrastructure. Other nations could gradually increase their involvement, transforming the conflict from a regional war into a truly global proxy confrontation. Acute escalation risk. Perhaps most dangerous is the possibility of miscalculation. When tensions run this high, misinterpreted radar signals, misunderstood military movements, or communication failures can trigger responses neither side actually intended. History shows that accidental escalation between nuclear powers represents one of humanity's greatest risks. Hybrid warfare expansion. Russia might choose responses below the threshold of conventional war. cyber attacks on power grids, sophisticated disinformation campaigns, or covert operations designed to create pressure without triggering direct military confrontation. Global implications. This standoff extends far beyond Russia, Ukraine, and the United States. When major powers clash, the entire international system feels the impact. Energy markets respond immediately to conflict signals. Russia's role in global oil and gas supply means any disruption potential sends prices upward, affecting everything from transportation costs to food production worldwide. Trade routes become uncertain, insurance costs rise, and nations begin repositioning their diplomatic and economic relationships to protect their interests. Stock markets react to instability, affecting retirement funds and investment portfolios globally. Even citizens in countries far from the conflict zone might notice rising prices at gas stations and grocery stores. Political stability can shift rapidly when economic pressure builds. Governments may introduce emergency policies, change spending priorities, or face domestic pressure from populations concerned about security and prosperity. The interconnected nature of modern economics means no nation remains truly isolated from major power conflicts. What to watch next? The situation remains fluid, and several indicators will signal where things are heading. Official statements. Pay attention to the specific language used by Russian and American officials. Escalatory rhetoric, defensive positioning, or unusual silence all carry meaning. NATO activity. Alliance meetings, joint exercises, or force repositioning will indicate how seriously Western nations view the threat level. Military movements. Watch for unusual deployments, aircraft activity, or naval positioning. These practical actions often reveal more than public statements. Diplomatic efforts. Behind-the-scenes negotiations may be happening even as public tensions remain high. Any sudden diplomatic travel or unexpected meetings could signal de-escalation attempts. Conclusion. We're witnessing a pivotal moment in international relations. The military action that triggered this crisis has pushed two nuclear-armed powers into a confrontation that carries genuine risks. Neither side can easily back down without appearing weak, yet both understand that continued escalation leads nowhere good. The coming days and weeks will reveal whether cooler heads prevail or whether this situation continues deteriorating. What happens next depends on careful decision-making, clear communication, and the willingness of leaders on all sides to prioritize stability over short-term tactical advantages. Understanding these developments requires looking beyond surface-level news coverage to see the strategic calculations, historical context, and global implications at play. As this situation evolves, staying informed with thoughtful analysis becomes increasingly important.